Hello everyone, this is Diane, and today is the day we get to flip through these two Raggedy Ann junk journals. These will be in my shop at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the day you see this video, which will probably, hopefully, be Saturday, November 9th. This one, I took the tie off it because I had started the video and then I had to start the video over. I don't want to put this back on, but I just slid it off the top, being careful of the buttons. So this is from a vintage apron, this polka dot fabric, and this is the tie from that same apron. And it was just the right length. It was the waistband and then the two ties. Just the right length to go around this book. And I had tied the bow and I didn't want to untie it, so I slipped it off the top. So we have some vintage pom-pom here and a red rickrack and then some buttons on the spine. And I did do a video yesterday showing how I sew the buttons on because that was requested. Also in that video, I demonstrate how to sew an envelope into the center of the signature if you didn't know how to do that. And I added just some little scraps back here and a little felt flower. So let's take a look. They're good sized journals. This is 6 inches wide and 9 1/4 inches long. Has a 2-inch spine. I didn't count the pages, but there are a lot of pages. I'll put that in the description box. And I did say, it might have been in the part that I started over. This is a 1961 book, and the other one is 1960. Now, I had a lot of Raggedy Ann books that the covers were not usable, but I cut a lot of pages out of them, pictures, and then I cut pictures out of these books also. So there are a lot of Raggedy Ann pictures, and I will be putting together a packet of goodies, including a lot of illustrations, and I just don't have it ready right now, but I need to get this video done while it's daylight because I don't know what the rest of my day. I'm leaving this morning and I don't know what I'll have time for today, so I want to get this done. So I stamped this piece and cut it out, and that can be your book plate. There are 3 signatures, and on the front page of each signature I made a big pocket with one of the big images from the books, and it has little bits of fabric and a felt flower, and then there's a card inside with another image from one of the books, and journaling space. This is a Project Life card, some illustrations, some ledger paper, and this is, I don't know the date on this, but it is vintage. It's not terribly old, but it's vintage. An unexcused absence card from my local high school. I got a packet of these and some blue cards for excuse cards from a thrift store. And Project Life card again. And this is a vintage Borden coupon that you would collect and redeem for gifts, and I used the one with the doll on in all of the journals. This vintage paper is from I don't know, I can't remember, but I'll link it. I did find it in a different video. I linked it, so I'll link it again. It's called Primitive, or I can't remember. I don't know the name of the paper or the shop. It might be Just Digital Papers. I know there's a shop called Just Digital Papers, and that this might be from that. Anyway, this is Eyelet and an orange ribbon. But I just thought these little rag dolls were cute. And then there's other paper that has the fun flowers. There's a variety of papers that contain these dolls. Some are little, some are in different colors. And then this is just a digital paper that I printed on the back, and I just have a folder on my computer that has papers to print on the backs. So I don't know where that came from. Here's a title page. And you can see the holes where the pages were sewn into the book. I left them because I just like that. I hope you don't mind. If you don't like it, you can put some washi tape down there. I made pockets out of some of the illustrations, black and white and colored. Now this says 1940 up here because that's the original copyright, but down here it says 1961. So I wrote it in pencil so you would know the actual printing of this book. A Project Life card is tucked in there, and 2 vintage postcards. This is one you can embellish with some of the pieces that I'm going to include in your packet if you wanted to, or just leave it. And this is an antique postcard dated 1923. It says, "How are you, friend?" It's such a pretty card, and Raggedy Ann is a very friendly doll. I made a fabric flip with some fabrics that Selena from Amour Fabriques sent me, and it's so adorable. So I cut this heart with the Raggedy Ann in it out of a fabric and then just stitched around it to attach it to this blue. And this is a background fabric that says Raggedy Ann and Andy all over it. Makes a fun flip. Then you can flip it up and right underneath it, or put some pictures or whatever you want to do. I put some quotes in, and I will include some quotes in your packet. They're clippings from the book pages, so you'll be able to just stick them in pockets or glue them down to pages if you want, but I did include one in each book. This says, "But as soon as she had left the room, all the dolls raised up in their beds. When their little mistress's footsteps passed out of hearing, all the dollies jumped out of their beds and gathered around Raggedy Andy." These pages are from Mrs. Cogg's Crafts. It's such a cute little drawing with space to write. This says, "Plans for the week," space for you to write. A vintage embroidered trim. This is scrapbook paper. I found some really fun scrapbook papers that went really well with the Raggedy Ann theme. And then a little patchy fabric pocket, an illustration. You can write on the back. This is a stamp, and I colored it in with colored pencils, and the same with the border up there. A wedding guest book page. This is a vintage ledger page. I loved it because it has red and green printing on it, which is perfect. This was a dairy delivery man's logbook or ledger book that he carried with him. This is just from a children's book. It had a story about a mouse, and it did have this Raggedy Andy type of doll here. The page was torn here, so I added that blue polka dot paper, which I think is a perfect accent. So coming across a page with some tears or spots that you want to cover up can really be serendipitous, because it turns out better than if you had left it plain. And I had some colored copy paper that I used, and there's this is a stamp that I stamped and cut it out. Made a fabric ruffle and a felt flower there. This is a Raggedy Ann shape book. I love it. And I put a Project Life card there. It says a few of the details, but I put it on as a pocket and tucked this little digital tag that I have. It was in my stash. Added some pom-pom trim here. This one is not vintage. There's the little mouse. And a couple fabric or paper scraps and a vintage milk bottle cap. Maybe it came on a bottle that this delivery man dropped off. There's a little image from a book. We did this in a video, making or decorating a slide mount with a Raggedy Ann image. I stamped on it and added the felt flower. This is another digital tag that was in my stash. And this is a florist hang tag to remind you to water your flowers. There's a grosgrain Raggedy Ann and Andy ribbon there. Another image from the Mrs. Coggs digital set. Here's a book page that has this vintage quilt piece sewn to it. This came out of a different book, a newer book from, it was either the 80s or the 90s, and I cut some images out of that. So this isn't the original Johnny Gruelle illustration. All the book illustrations are either Johnny Gruelle or his son Worth. And then this is the back, the white side of this scrapbook paper. I put some colored scrapbook paper on it. This is a vintage sheet from a memo pad from Wabash Moving Company. And this illustration from a book. And on the back, we have this illustration cut from a book, backed with red cardstock. And there's another illustration you can write on. It does go in. I'll do that later. And I stamped this piece that you can write on. Here's the second signature with the fabric pieces. There's little ladybugs on that. So cute. And the tag. This is cut from the edge of a linen piece. This is from the bigger book. And I just made it a little tuck spot and put this ombre index card in it. And I couldn't find this one, so I don't know where I got this digital. I tried to find it in my purchases on Etsy. I couldn't find it. And there's a embroidered trim here, vintage and vintage eyelet. There's a pocket here. This is just an illustration printed on the page, but I added a pocket, a little tag that you can decorate, and a Project Life card. Here we have Andy from that fabric. This fabric is Daisy Kingdom, so probably from the 90s. Maybe, I don't know, it might be newer than that. This is a Mrs. Coggs. I love that she added this big flower there. This is a very soft flannel. It is so cute. I love it. Their faces are just so adorable. And then I stamped some flowers and butterflies. There's another page to write on. It says Notes for Home, student's name. So this is a note that a teacher would have sent home. I got 3 or 4 tablets of these kinds of things, and I think it was at Walmart, but it's been a while, so I don't remember. So that other one I showed you, Things to Do, was another one of those tablets. This is an embroidered trim, which I think is great with the colors. Just a little vintage paper that says, "Don't say it, write it." It's from IBM. Lined green paper. This didn't print right on the back. I was supposed to have this printed all along the back, but it didn't. This part was blank, so I covered it up with an assortment of lined papers. This is a wallpaper border, another stamped label, and a sticker. Fabric ruffle. This is from a pattern for making Raggedy Ann dolls, and this was an embroidery transfer that you could iron onto a piece of fabric and then embroider the heart and the words "I love you." This is vintage lace. I love this, and it's almost gone. This little envelope has a red lining, and I just put a plain card in there that you can decorate or write on, put a photo on. And this was cut from a strip of of a woven trim. Vintage. Some more flowers and butterflies. This is a piece of stationery. It's off-white with this corner decoration. I just glued it to the white side of this page. And this is a little bingo card that I decorated. This is cut from a vintage paper doll book. And there's a couple of tickets. This is a dry cleaning claim ticket. And I just made this little tag that you can use to write on, and I added some vintage yarn. And the last signature. This was cut from a little doily. This is a paint chip with a little image cut from a book. She's pretending her dollies are sick. This is Marcella. She's the owner of Raggedy Ann and Andy. Here I have the yellow card. Oh, the other one was yellow too, wasn't it? I was supposed to put the blue one in here. Project Life card and a limeade label, soda label. There's another of those primitive flower pages. This one has two pockets, a colored one and a black and white, and I put a Project Life card in there and in here with a library card. It's not really a card, it's a piece of paper. And this is cut from a different Raggedy Ann fabric that I picked up, and it's not branded, so they don't exactly look like Raggedy Ann, but you can definitely tell that's who it is. And I got it at a flea market. This is a piece of vintage calico fabric that I think this was in a bag of stuff I bought at a yard sale that was Raggedy Ann doll pattern with pieces cut out, including some dress pieces. Oh, there's another quote from a book. This is the printed page. This is printed on this beautiful blue floral. And then this is another vintage wrapping paper that I made into a pocket. And vintage yarn here. Here's another. This is for a substitute teacher. Substitute report. And a vintage embroidered trim. An award certificate. This is a paper, a receipt for taxes, county and township taxes in 1975. And someone who owned it wrote the Statler brothers on it. So I left that there, but if you wanted to just put something there to cover it, you know, that's your prerogative. But I didn't want to cover it. I thought it was kind of fun. And I love this pocket. This was a pack of pre-cut fabric hearts, which was perfect. And I put just a little scrap there. This is a stamp that I have, and I made it into a little tuck spot. And this was an envelope that was in my stash. It was a digital envelope, and I just cut a little scrap of cardstock to fit and put it in there. And this is stamped. This is a page from a 1970s, like early 70s, I think, pattern catalog. So this was a pattern to make a giant Raggedy Ann doll. And I just collaged some papers on the back of it. This is a stamp. This is from the paper doll book too. There's another I love you from the pattern. And some vintage daisies. I love these little corner floral stamps. They're old Stampin' Up! Ones. It's from a book, and I stamped this heart onto pink cardstock, and I just have this card that I thought was really cute and tucked it in there. Another grosgrain ribbon. Grosgrain means it has the ridges in it. This is a stamp. And this is a page from a address book. And this is Christmas card list page. And another piece of Raggedy Ann wrapping paper that I glued onto some red and white striped paper. And this is from the Raggedy Ann's Candy Heart Wisdom book. It has an image on both sides, so I just left that. And there's a quote on both sides. And this is from one of the books. There's a library pocket here that I added an image to, and one of the papers, library card papers, and I'll have my signature on that. So this is Raggedy Ann and the Golden Butterfly. I'll be able to go through this one a little more quickly. I have this patchy tie on it. I forgot, I started making this on a video, one of the first videos. I just started adding some scrappy trims or fabrics to it. This was a strip that I took off of it's a vintage fabric that was torn into strips and then wrapped into a cube. So I just have this block and I just pull fabrics off it, which I showed you in that video, but I forgot that I had torn it to make it a little bit narrower. So this would have been better if it was skinnier, but it's fine the way it is. It's just a little harder to tie it, and I just untied it. I was going to slip it off, but I forgot. Anyway, there's this fabric tie. I'll tie it again. And this one is Raggedy Ann in the Magic Book. It has the same vintage trim. This is a vintage tablecloth piece. The other one had an apron. This one's a tablecloth. And again, some buttons. It has, some of them are vintage and some are not. Has the same things here. And this one was 1961. Raggedy Andy had been fidgety at the table. He kept slipping down in his chair, so Marcella put him on top of the toy piano in the corner where you can have more room to wiggle, she said. I thought that was cute. I used, I think, the same trims in both books. This is from an Ideals book with a Raggedy Ann doll in a little doll cradle. And I didn't cover the back of it because I really liked this quilt to go along with the Raggedy Ann theme. This one I did not turn into a pocket. I think I glued this down first and didn't think to make it a pocket. There's a vintage milk bottle cap there. This is cut from a really old Raggedy Ann's doll pattern. The pattern was very tattered, but I was able to cut some of the images off of it. A paint chip. I didn't back this with anything because it was plain on the back. Here is the antique postcard in this journal. It wasn't used. I think this might have been, yeah, this is a sample of the Household Journal's grand set of new postcards for 1911. So this was a salesman's sample card. Have to glue that. Then Raggedy Andy raised up on his cotton-stuffed elbow and whispered to Raggedy Ann, "Let's have another adventure, shall we?" This is a computer printer stationery page that has Mary's bears around the edges with pretty flowers, so I thought that was a cute thing to use. These are probably some friends of Raggedy Ann and Andy, and they're coming to the nursery to visit with them. There's a bingo card with a illustration from the paper doll papers. The Raggedy Ann paper dolls, yeah. And some fabric and some vintage yarn in there. Oh, it's the buttons. I kept feeling like there's something under there. This is cut from a vintage linen. This was a cute illustration from the newer book, and so I glued him on like he's hanging from the top of the page. His feet are glued down, and this is glued down, so it's a kind of a belly band. And I had this blue index card stamp those checkered borders or corners, and it looks really cute tucked in there. Here we have a digital ticket from KB and Friends. And their little shoe-button eyes caught the twinkle in the little dwarf's eyes, and their cotton-stuffed bodies seemed to fill with a glow of sunny happiness, for they knew and used the wonderful charm, the charm of being kind. It is a charm. And again, the same receipt from the tax collector, and it says Statler Brothers. So I don't know what they were doing, putting on a Statler Brothers concert. If you don't know, I'll have to glue that down. If you don't know of the Statler Brothers, they're an old-time quartet. They were really good. My dad loved them. Oh, here it is. I have to do it now or I'll forget. They did some gospel, but not all gospel. It was I did a lot of fun stuff. They were very, very good. This one has, I think it's the Sunshine Family dolls pictured, but doll clothes pattern. So I didn't cover the back of this because they are dolls. They could have been in the nursery with Raggedy Ann and Andy. This is from a vintage magazine advertising a pattern you could buy for those rag dolls. There's the I Love You embroidery transfer. And this heart fabric has little dolls all over it. And somebody wrote up here, done by, I think it's supposed to say Kelly Cook, but she used fancy writing, so some of the letters are a little hard to decipher. There's the Christmas card list page and the Raggedy Andy from that old sewing pattern for dolls. Pages from the Candy Heart Wisdom book. And the pocket at the back. These books were so fun. I hope you enjoyed seeing the process of what you got to see, and hope you really enjoyed the flip through. So my shop is linked below. You can go there and find these journals at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a creative day. Bye.